Before MyWorks, how were you getting your Shopify orders into QuickBooks?
I was pulling manual reports from Shopify and making journal entries. A good 15 hours a week. Going back to a manual system is totally out of the question at this point. I can't believe that we pay so little for the functionality that we get out of it. I basically don't spend any time doing anything. It's super easy. I'm grateful that the software exists.
Hi and welcome. Today we're joined by Julie from Revel Bikes, who will tell us about their journey integrating Shopify and QuickBooks. Can you start by telling me about Revel Bikes and your role there?
Sure. So we are a company that manufactures and sells bicycles in the US and all across the world. Our headquarters is in the US, and then we have a branch in Taiwan. And I'm the controller, so I handle all of the finances. We're pretty small, so we don't have a CFO or anything like that. So it's just me and the owner, who's also the CEO, that handles sort of the high level operations.
Okay, great. So I guess you're the right person to ask about
Yeah.
your whole setup when it comes to accounting and e-commerce. Could you tell me what platforms you use and what your setup looks like at the moment?
Yeah, we're using Shopify for almost everything. And then on the back end, we're actually just using QuickBooks for high level accounting. We don't do a lot of detailed reporting in there. We leave that to Shopify. And we have some other inventory software and a little bit of marketing software as well.
Okay, great. So before MyWorks, how were you getting your Shopify orders into QuickBooks?
So I was pulling a manual report from Shopify and making journal entries. I originally started out doing it weekly, but it was way too much work. And it was really hard to tell which things I had already recorded. Because, as you know, in Shopify, orders can change. We have a longer lead time. Sometimes it takes us several weeks to ship a custom order out. So we don't turn our stuff around daily. And so that makes it a little more difficult to use Shopify's reporting. They're really geared towards the really fast turnover. And so I then switched to monthly journal entries, but that was kind of a bummer because we could really only see what was happening financially after the end of every month. So I couldn't check on the reports during the month or anything like that. It was not until after I had closed the month that we could really see our numbers and metrics.
Right. Yeah, I hear a lot of pain points there, but could you walk me through exactly what pushed you to look for a different solution?
Sure. The main thing for us is that we want to recognize revenue on a fulfillment basis, not on an order taken basis. Like I mentioned before, for us, it can be several weeks between order taken and actually shipping out the product. So for me, it's really important to recognize our revenue only upon fulfillment, and that is not native to Shopify. And so that was when I really started to look for some sort of connector that would allow me to control when data was pushed from Shopify to our accounting system.
Right, great. So when it comes to actually finding a solution, how did you go about your research?
Lots of like chat GPT, Claude questioning, just tons of research online, trying to figure out. We are, like I said, we're super small, so we don't have an IT department. Everything that we've implemented or chosen to implement has just been because we've all spent time researching online what we think would work best. So we kind of go into things blindly a little bit, because we don't have someone to really, sometimes we just do start a software and try it, see how it goes. A trial and error.
Yeah, I guess that's always the way when you're running a business, you have a lean team, you really need to figure things out as you go. So I totally hear that. We're also a small team and very lean. So yeah, I can
Mhm.
totally understand that. So what made you actually go for MyWorks and try us out in the first place?
I was researching like three different plugins to Shopify. Two of them were quite expensive. Also, the CEO and owner, my boss, he really wanted to keep things as simple as possible as far as the data that was coming from Shopify to our accounting. We didn't want to duplicate a lot of data. We can get what we need mostly from Shopify, and no sense in having a really complex accounting system with a lot of detail when the detail already exists somewhere else. Like I said, we're a super small company, so a lot of it came down to the cost and then just the ease of using it and flexibility in choosing what can come over to the accounting system from Shopify.
Great. Yeah, you sound like someone who uses QuickBooks and Shopify a lot and maximizes the built-in features there. Can you walk me through some ways in which that clarity you're gaining with MyWorks has helped you use QuickBooks and Shopify better?
Sure. I'm not the best at using Shopify, to be honest with you. The sales team really has done that, and I can pull very basic information out of there, but I haven't had time. We just switched over last October, which sounds like a long time ago, but I have 1,000 other things to do every day. So learning Shopify has not been my top priority at this point, which is another reason that I wanted some connector to just get the data out of Shopify and get it to me, because I don't have a lot of time to search around in Shopify and figure out how to use the reports. And I need it in my system. So, and then just being able to, the implementation team at MyWorks was great because I had a lot of questions about what we were exporting, how it was going to show up on my side. We started before the daily summary journal entries were available to us. So we used to import for the first few months a lot of detailed stuff, and it was great. Even that was great. I prefer the condensed daily summary entries that we're able to do now, which was amazing when that was released in May. I was really happy about that. So
Great to hear. So when you're comparing your previous workflow with getting your data into QuickBooks and now with MyWorks, what does that look like? What are the main differences?
I basically don't spend any time doing anything. So, like I mentioned, I was doing manual journal entries from Shopify. So, we're pulling a report, filtering that report, trying to make sure it was filtered the way that I wanted to see it, which was fulfilled orders, paid orders, journaling all that into the accounting system. That's 5 balance sheet accounts, it's P&L accounts. Now I kind of just keep an eye on it. Like I'll check MyWorks once a week to make sure that everything's synced. And if there was a problem on a day for some reason, it's super easy to go in, figure out why it didn't sync. And then otherwise, I just monitor the accounts and make sure that the balances seem reasonable to me. But I'm not having to check every single day what data is coming over. I'm just sort of trusting the connector.
Well, it certainly seems like we've managed to save you a lot of manual work, which is great. That's the whole purpose of automating the sync. If you had to put a number on it, what would you say is the time that you have saved or the efficiency that you've gained?
Hour wise, I couldn't even tell you. Like I said, from October to December-ish time frame, most of my week was spent just pulling reports from Shopify and then trying to make these journal entries and make everything match. So a good 15 hours a week just between pulling the reports and checking them and trying to understand what was in the report. Now it's maybe like 2 hours, maybe an hour a week, just checking the export and making sure that I think the accounts seem like in a reasonable balance.
Awesome to hear that. Usually, when you automate things in your business, it might take a bit of time to set up or learn the system. When it comes to MyWorks, what would you say was the time from signing up to starting syncing? Was that a difficult process or?
No, it was super easy. It probably took 2 hours total to get it up and running, and a couple chats with support to just understand some of the things that were syncing and how they were syncing. Yeah, I mean, in total, it was probably 2 to 3 hours spread across 2 weeks. Just as I started learning how it was working, and I had a couple questions after it was implemented, which got answered right away. But yeah, it was a super easy setup.
Amazing. That's so good to hear. And I'll pass that on to our support team. Like,
Yeah, and the support has been great, actually. I've had some questions that probably didn't even fall within the realm of things that they should know or and they've answered them for me. So it kind of tells me that they know how the system operates in conjunction with other systems, not just what you guys have created, but also how it integrates with other things. Because, like I said, some of my questions probably were not specific to MyWorks; they were just general questions, and they did answer them, and the answers worked, and the little fixes did work. So they definitely know what they're doing for sure.
that's what we always aim for because we do understand that there's so many other products that you're using and
Mm-hmm.
other systems. So we do need to know about different parts of the business in order to advise you best on accounting and the sync. So really glad that it's coming across this way. Awesome. So with all of that saved time, how would you say that the successful integration has affected other parts of your business? Like, is there anything that now you finally have more time to do as a result of saving time from those manual tasks?
Sure. We actually went through a pretty complicated merger last year. So we have devoted very little time to cleaning up some of the stuff that happened during the merger. And because it was mostly back end accounting and balance sheet items, it wasn't the most important thing that we could be working on at the time, but it does need to get done. And so once I was confident that the information was coming from Shopify to my accounting system the way that I wanted it to, the frequency that I needed it to, so that I could pull reports, I was able to pretty much forget about that. Like I said, I check it maybe like once a week just to make sure, but otherwise I kind of let that part of the accounting run itself at this point. And now I'm doing a lot of just high level cleaning up and organizing some old stuff. We're refining our sales tax. We live in Colorado, so it's a super complicated sales tax system that we really haven't had any time to devote to, to doing. And then, of course, now the business is starting to grow because we've been in business for about a year. So just being able to forget about like the little minutia of the accounting, which is really nice. I have a lot of other things going on. So,
Okay, so let's say you're talking to a business owner who is where you were a year ago and
mhm.
looking for solutions to solve the problems you had with e-commerce accounting. What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
The best thing about MyWorks, I guess, is that it is flexible between the amount of information you want to import to your accounting system. Like I said, we started out with importing every order line item, which for us can be a lot of data, but it worked. And it was our only option for a while until the new release. But I think I would just say it's so flexible. And for the price, you can choose how much data you want to import, and I think that's great because it's actually, I can't believe that we pay so little for the functionality that we get out of it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really glad that it's really bringing that value into your business. Okay, well, let's say something horrible happens and you can no longer use MyWorks. What would you do in that situation?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, now I would have to research another connector. I think going back to a manual system is totally out of the question at this point. Most of the other connectors that I researched were, like I mentioned, really expensive, and the setup was labor intensive for us. We're not at the point where we need that kind of robustness. We need to be able to choose easily and get it up and running. And I felt like it was a lot of time dedicated to just setting it up and figuring out how it works. But again, I don't think I can go back to a manual system. So we'd probably have to compromise somehow and fork over extra money and maybe take a lot of time to get it set up. But yeah, a manual system is not and not possible anymore.
I totally hear that. I mean, once you get used to automation, there's no going back. You
Yeah.
value your time that much more, definitely.
Yeah. So don't go anywhere because I don't.
We're not planning to. We hope to be able to support you for many years to come.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think we've covered so much already. So I just wanted to check if there's anything else that you'd like to share about your e-commerce accounting journey or about MyWorks that we haven't covered yet.
No, I don't think so. I just like to reiterate for the money, the flexibility, choosing in the export, and then yeah, the support has been really great.
Thank you so much, Julie, for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. As I said, we're a small team, and every single piece of feedback, it really helps us grow and help more business owners. So, yeah, I'm super grateful for your time today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm grateful that the software exists.